Hello there! Welcome to the Saroy channel wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. How are you doing? I hope you're doing remarkably well. I'm doing great, thank you very much, and I'm so delighted you've joined me for part 4 of our story, so let's continue, shall we? 2 months later, Robert Bayshaw. I have been a private investigator for many long years. I was asked by Candace to spy on her ex-girlfriend, a young lady called Toya Bouquet. What is it you want me to do, ma'am? I asked my client, who had agreed to pay me handsomely. I want you to follow Toya around for me. I want you to record where she goes, what she does, who she's with, and I want you to see if her relationship with this young man called Flint is actually legit. You mean you want me to find out if they are actually dating? Why would you want to know this, ma'am? I thought you said that your ex-girlfriend cheated on you with this man. So it's obvious they're dating, is it not? What do you really want to know, ma'am? I don't see how I can possibly help you. I'm a private investigator. I'm not exactly God. I can't tell people who they can and cannot date, if you understand what I'm saying. Of course you're not God, and I don't expect you to be either. I need you to follow Toya around to glean the truth, that's all. I believe my girlfriend was fobbing me off. She's very afraid of her true authentic feelings towards me. She's one of those people that is in the closet, refuses to come out, if you know what I mean. She comes from a strict Catholic background, where being gay is taboo. Candace rolled her eyes in exasperation. I've been so patient with her, I really have. I haven't pushed myself on her in any way. I've given her time to acclimatise to who she really is. But her parents are stuck up and rigidly stiff about their opinions over everything. I believe their conservative influences have been instrumental in making Toya the way she is. She's reluctant to be her true, authentic self. So you think Toya is gay, do you? And is not willing to admit this to herself? Is that what you're saying? I fail to see how I can help you here, ma'am. Well, I think she's bisexual. She is still head over heels in love with me. I know she is. I'm not going to give up on her so easily, just because she's in denial about her true feelings and her sexual identity. I think when we went to her parents' house, they came down on her hard like a ton of bricks. And now she's trying to resume being straight again. That's why she's going out with this Flint. I don't believe she loves him for a moment. Look, ma'am, I fail to see how my following a woman around who has issues with her sexuality is going to help you in any way. As I keep telling you, I'm a private investigator, and I can't see how that is going to help you. I'm not God. I can't change her sexual leanings. Candace let out another sigh. I'm paying you very well, Mr. Bayshaw, do you not agree? What are you complaining about? Ma'am, I'm not complaining about anything. But I am still not fully aware of exactly what it is you want me to do. Yes, you want me to take pictures of Toya, photographs of Toya and Flint. I get that. But what is the purpose of my investigation? I don't fully understand it. Mr. Bayshaw, I will spell it out to you, shall I? I want you to record where Toya goes, who she's with. I need you to record her mood. Is she happy? Is she sad? I want pictures of her with Flint. I want to know how serious their relationship is. Is that too hard to understand? So you want me to follow this couple around, take photographs. Is that it? Yes, Mr. Bayshaw. Finally you get it. Is that easy enough for you? Can you do that for me? It seems pretty straightforward, ma'am. But I think it is something you could possibly do yourself. But as you're paying well, I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. That would be a foolish thing to do. Good! I'm glad you get it. I just want Toya back in my life, Mr. Bayshaw. I need to know what's going on in her life, so I can discern how to proceed from here. I mean, if her relationship with Flint is serious, I'll have to call it quits, won't I? But I'm hoping it just may be a casual fling. Maybe he means nothing to her at all. And that's what I need you to find out.
I see, ma'am. You want me to find out how serious the couple are?
Exactly, Mr. Bayshaw. Do you get where I'm going with this?
I think so, ma'am. I do understand what you want me to do, but you are paying a lot of money for something that is very, very simple.
But I don't care. I need to find out the truth. The money isn't the issue for me, Mr. Bayshaw. I just need you to do your job. That's all I'm asking. Do you think you can do it?
It shouldn't be a problem, ma'am. I'm glad to help you as much as I can.
Well, I'm glad to hear it, Mr. Bayshaw. Consider yourself hired, then.
It was because of Candace's impetuous demands on me to follow Toyah Bouquet around that I found myself in the Catskill Mountains of all things. I had learnt that Flint had a grandmother who lived there in a house in the woods. The couple were spending a few days with the elderly lady. I gleaned this from one of Flint's work colleagues, working at the French bank with him. He told me that Flint was very close to his grandmother and would frequently stay with her for a few days in the Catskills. This time he had taken Toyah with him. That, in my book, already suggested very clearly the relationship was a lot more serious than Candace had previously first implied. Maybe she really was hanging on to a lost hope. And I hate to say this, but I rather suspected she was. So this would not exactly be good news for her. I was not in the habit of sugarcoating the truth to my clients. They all needed hard, cold facts from me. And as brutal as they may be to digest, I always presented them with the truth. In my line of business, I had more than frequently, than I cared to recount, been the bearer of very bad tidings to the people that recruited my services. But let's face it, by the time most of these people hire me, they've already resigned themselves to a less than agreeable truth. All this goes hand in hand with the job of being a private investigator. I had asked this work colleague of Flint's at the French bank, a man called Roland Williamson, who let his reserve down very easily after I'd insisted on buying him a few drinks at the local bar. Let's just say the information literally seeped out of the man as easily as putting butter on a steaming corn cob, as his reticence just slipped away. Ostensibly, this friendly, happy-go-lucky man spoke to me very casually, very nonchalantly, about Toyah and Flint's relationship. It really is amazing how people are willing to talk to you after you ply them with a few drinks. Their inhibitions go flying out of the window, I find. Roland told me in a hushed tone of voice, so that no one could eavesdrop on our conversation, which was rather ironic, because he was confiding in a stranger. He revealed that Flint was completely smitten by Toyah. I don't want to talk too loudly, he explained to me, just in case the ears around this bar are wagging. You have no idea how rife office gossip can be. Everybody wants to know everybody's business, if you know what I mean. Of course I do, I said. Roland knocked back another few glugs of his beer and made an unfortunate burping sound, which made him chuckle rather than apologize. So I just chuckled back with him. Let's see. Where are we? You were asking me about Flint's relationship with Toyah. Is that right? That's right. Do you know how they met? I asked. I do, as it happens. Can you believe it? Flint met Toyah when standing for his friend as a delivery driver. It was a special favor. It's funny how you can meet people. His best friend happens to own a florist with his wife. So Flint stood in for him for a day, while his friend's wife was having a baby at the hospital. That's how he met Toyah, delivering roses to her front door and getting her to sign for them. He said he knew the moment he saw her that she was the one for him. He said that to you? I asked. He was that taken by her? Absolutely, said Roland, chugging back more craft beer and making another unfortunate burp. Flint is not the type to believe in love at first sight, believe me. But he said when he met Toyah, there was something innocent and fresh about her that made her stand out from the crowd to him. She was upset when he delivered the roses to her door. He could tell she'd been crying for quite some time. She looked quite distressed. He got the idea of suggesting some chocolate lava cake would make her feel a whole lot better. He said he was going over the road himself to the artisan cafe for some chocolate lava cake, and that she was welcome to join him. She told him she'd think about it. In truth, he thought she was being polite, and that she'd never show up. But he got the shock of his life when she actually did. He said in that moment his heart began to do leapfrogs. And it was in the artisan cafe that they seemed to connect, if you know what I mean. So that is how they became inseparable. It's a wonderful relationship, I have to say. In the beginning he was a self-confessed bachelor, Flint, you know. And just when he'd given up on meeting anyone, Toyah comes along. Roland chuckled. He pointed to a very brassy-looking woman in the far corner of the bar. You see that woman over there? The one that looks like mutton dressed up as lamb? Throwing herself at that young man? You see her? Yes, I do. It's the young man I feel sorry for, I said. The poor man looks out of his depth. That woman is Flint's boss, I'll have you know. She was into Flint big time, until he told her he was married to Toyah. She believed him, and thank God she did. She thinks Flint is married, so she stopped making advances at him. Flint was terrified of her, and worried that if he didn't respond to her, she would stop him from getting promoted. She's a married woman, you know. She should be ashamed of her behaviour. She's like a scavenger the way she eyes all the men in the office. It's not safe with her around, let me tell you. Especially if you're a good-looking young man. There's something to be said for having a beer gut like myself, said Roland, rubbing his stomach contentedly. That woman would never give me a second glance, and thank God for that. Poor man, I said. He doesn't look remotely happy. May I ask you another question, Roland? Of course you may ask. Ask away. You're buying all the beers, so how can I refuse you? You think they will get married? I asked with interest. I'm talking about Flint and Toyah, of course. Is it that serious? It's only a matter of time, said Roland. I'm in no doubt that Toyah, who is a stunning woman, with reddish hair and fair skin, will marry Flint. She's down to earth and friendly. I went out with them one evening, you know, for a meal. The energy between them was absolutely electric. They're good for each other, and I've never seen Flint look so happy. These days he goes around the office with a smile so big, I'm surprised it even fits on his face. And what about Toyah? Do you think she's as equally smitten about Flint as he is about her? I asked. Oh, definitely. It's obvious she's totally taken by him. As I was saying, the energy between the two of them is electric. And since they've been together, they've been inseparable. I guess if it works, it works. They moved into a flat together over the weekend. They're spending a few days in the Catskills with Flint's grandmother. Flint has never taken a girl to his grandmother's house before. That's why I know it's serious. His relationship with Toyah, I mean. He'd never introduce his grandmother to anyone he didn't really care about. Do you think Toyah could be bisexual? I asked rather coyly. I get what you're asking. You mean, does the pendulum swing both ways? Asked Roland, chuckling. Absolutely not. Toyah is straight as a pencil. She'd never be interested in another woman like that. Why do you even ask such a preposterous question? I just wondered, I said. I gleaned a great deal of useful information from Flint's work colleague Roland, but I had to take photographs of the couple for my client. I was a hard-working private investigator, working on behalf of my clients, and what they wanted, I would give them in spades if need be. Yes, I've met people as obsessed over a love interest as Candace. In my time, that is. I had a client once whose husband had asked her for a divorce, and she had got me to follow his girlfriend around all over the place to find out the details about where she worked, where she had her nails done, and so forth. Much like Candace, she wanted photographs, and dozens of them, of the couple together. When I presented them to her, and she saw the photographs of her husband embracing another woman, she went quite manic. I even got afraid of her myself, the way she reacted. She screamed and tore up the photographs and finally told me that my services were no longer required, and thank God for that. Perhaps the evidence had given her some warped kind of closure, where she had come to terms with the tragic truth about her husband's new love interest. Sometimes reality can serve a cruel blow. I suspected Candace was much the same. A very intense young woman, with more money than sense, that was completely obsessed with her ex-girlfriend, whom she claimed was a gay woman, refusing to admit her true sexual identity. Whether this was true about Toya or not was of no real concern to me. What Candace really wanted to know was how serious Toya's relationship was with Flint, and she needed photographs, and that's what I would give her. I had learned from many of the people I spoke to at the French bank that Flint was crazy about Toya Bouquet. Some even thought that they were married, but I knew differently. They were living together at his flat in Manhattan. I had gleaned they'd gone to stay at his grandmother's place in the Catskills. I thankfully found the address. The grandmother's house was buried among a labyrinth of trees on a sizable, heavily wooded lot. As a private investigator, this was my very worst nightmare. I had managed to follow the couple around the town of Catskill, taken some rather ambiguous snapshots of them walking away with grocery bags in their hands. But those snapshots were very benign and were not satisfactory. I needed some more substantial snapshots of the couple interacting together, so that my client Candace could glean how serious the nature of their relationship was. So hopefully she would find the closure in which she was seeking, and hopefully move on with her life. In truth, I felt sorry for anyone who ended up involved with Candace. She was a difficult woman, of that I was in no doubt. I was also sure they'd feel smothered by her. I wondered if this was the reason that Toya had left Candace, or could it be that she'd never been gay in the first place? In my book, that was a distinct possibility. I parked my green, easily camouflaged four-wheel drive very discreetly on a back, muddy dirt road, wearing a pair of very good walking boots on my feet. I trespassed onto Flint's grandmother's property rather easily, edging my way cautiously through the trees. Sometimes a man's got to do what a man's got to do. And it's amazing how a good paycheck can be a good motivating factor, especially when you've got a family to feed with 2 children that go to private schools. And let's not talk about the crazy, incessant amount of money it costs to educate them. I needed these photographs to satisfy my demanding client, and come hell or high water, I would get them for her. My wife Anna didn't appreciate the kind of work I did for a living. All the sneaking around certainly did not float her boat. But I was always quick to remind her there were worse jobs that I could be doing out there. "What is worse?" she demanded. I told her crime scene cleaners had a raw deal cleaning up body parts and blood. And what about working in a landfill site? That's got to be a nasty job. After I said that, she promptly shut up, and thank God for that. I guess I'd made a rather reasonable point. I could not help wonder about my client Candace. I wondered if she would rather be like that client of mine that tore up the pictures of her husband with another woman. Or would she discreetly cut out the pictures of Toya to keep them exclusively for herself, so she could superimpose her own images on them and block out Flint? Believe me, I've seen things in my time that would make most people's hair curl. Human beings can be fascinating, idiosyncratic creatures who can do absurd things, especially when they're fixated on another human being. and I'm often hired by people who are paranoid they are being cheated on, or they simply want to know what their other half gets up to while they're away at work. It was a magnificent, beautiful and prepossessing day, with the soft sunshine casting its shimmering light through the eclectic mix of tall, lofty trees, their outstretched boughs proudly covered with pretty leafy green foliage, while some trees were of the evergreen variety, standing up rigidly straight and erect. There was a cool breeze blowing against my face as I entered the string of trees that would ultimately lead to the house, where hopefully I might be able to observe the young couple, if they happened to go out of doors for a while, which I hoped they would. Hopefully I could get some good photographs of them. If need be, I could clandestinely creep around the house, peering into windows, hopefully catching the couple in a compromising position. Those photographs are the very best. But it would be unlikely for that to happen, I thought, given that Flint was staying with his grandmother and was likely to be on his best behaviour. If my wife knew the measures I sometimes resorted to get those photographs, she would be absolutely appalled. So the less she knew, the better. As I've got significantly older, I've been a lot more reluctant and rather reticent about peeping into people's windows, in case I get caught. Because let's not kid, it's a high-risk thing to do. I was once called a peeping Tom by a very angry old woman when I was caught in the act of peering into her window. I had a lot of explaining to do at the police station, but thankfully the police let me off. They probably appreciated how tough it is to get those compromising pictures when you're a private investigator. You certainly have to have your wits about you. I was feeling a tad apprehensive, I have to say, and I wasn't exactly sure why this was the case. All I can say is something felt distinctly off, and a strange, rather impending feeling of dread overcame me, along with the feeling of being watched. This is the kind of feeling you do not want to experience as a private investigator. I am supposed to slink in and out of situations without even being observed or noticed. I've always been sharp on the uptake and very aware of my immediate surroundings, so I knew that the uneasiness that overcame me could not be in my imagination. The wood growth itself was a labyrinth of trees that stretched so far and wide, like an all-encompassing yawn. The path through the trees was a higgledy-piggledy chaotic mess, overgrown and treacherous. Burgeoning roots whipped through the forest floor, indiscriminately, in a knotty squiggle of limbs. It rarely was a minefield. Any of those roots could potentially drag me down, with very little effort, which was very disquieting. I had unfortunately scratched myself against some sharp, thorny briars. Damn, I said to myself, why the hell wasn't I wearing long sleeves? I could feel that my skin had broken. Blood was running down my arms in a red trickle. Too bad. I'd deal with it later. I was clueless as to where I was going, but I followed my compass in a northerly direction, so I could easily locate the house. I stopped short in my tracks when I came to a tree, covered in people's shoes, hanging indiscriminately all over the branches. There were hundreds and hundreds of these things, all tied together with leather strings. Women's court shoes, sandals, sneakers, boots, of every shape, size and colour you could imagine. They were hanging on the branches like the baubles on a Christmas tree. Goodness gracious me, this was weird, I thought. I took a photograph of the tree because it was oddly like a strange work of art. I examined some of the shoes, inspecting them with my hands. Some of them were so dated, they looked like they went back to the early 40s and 50s. I then stumbled quite by chance on a couple of trees in the ground, not far from the tree where all the shoes were hanging on it. They'd been planted upside down and were clearly dead. It was very sinister. I'd never seen anything so weird and peculiar in my entire life, and in truth I had no idea what to make of it. I couldn't help but think it was all very menacing and menacious. I had this awful, bodeful feeling that I was not welcome in this place, that something wanted me gone from the wood grove, In fact, the woods seemed to become darker every second, as if the light of the day had been expunged. Everything just spoke of something being seriously off. But I refused to allow my mind to indulge in such fanciful thinking. Believe me, I would have happily retreated on my steps, returning to my car. But I had a job to do. I was a professional, and I fully intended to accomplish my goal. I couldn't allow an uncomfortable feeling to make me scurry away like a frightened rabbit, diving back into its burrow. All of a sudden, the overwhelming feeling of being watched was so treacherously palpable that I almost felt that someone was right there under my nose. But as I circumnavigated the trees with my beady, very attentive eyes, I observed absolutely nothing. Of course, it was incredibly difficult to see anything in this untamed thicket of dense, very messy vegetation. I had to skillfully focus on putting one foot after another, so I didn't trip and lose my footing. And if I did not seriously guard every step I took, I might end up becoming a victim to the forest's wrath, as branches reached out to grab me. All of a sudden, I heard a low growl. I began to panic. I knew the growl was directed at me. I could hear words in my head. "Get out! Get out!" Was that voice in my head or not? It didn't seem to be my own. Was I going completely mad, I wondered? Was I losing it? I couldn't see anything, but I knew that something was there, and my blood went icy cold. I stood there, unable to move, and locked in the moment, with my camera swinging around my neck. That was when I saw something, a big flash of black through the trees. What the hell was that? A silhouette of Herculean proportions, built like a giant. I also caught a flash of yellow eyeshine. I quickly looked away, edging myself gingerly forward, not really thinking exactly about where I was going. At this point, my head was pounding inside my chest like a jumping jack. I was filled with a desperate urgency to escape these woods as quickly as I could. I just needed to get out of here. I was much closer to Flint's grandmother's house than to my own car, so I knew I'd make a dash to her house and hopefully take cover there. I looked back to where I'd seen the dark silhouette, but then nothing was there. I was beginning to doubt myself, doubt what I'd seen. Maybe I hadn't seen anything at all. Maybe I was imagining things. But then, standing between the trees, I saw him. The most enormous Bigfoot. I saw him very clearly, and he wanted me to see him. Of that I am in no uncertain doubt. I could feel this marvellous creature's incandescent rage as he kicked the ground with his ponderously powerful feet, waving his furious fists at me. The dark eyes that leered into mine were filled with extreme indignance. I was in no doubt that this monstrous, wrathful creature wanted me dead. I knew it with the whole core of my being. Was I ever going to escape this monstrous beast with my life? It seemed highly doubtful. This Bigfoot was the most terrifying creature I have ever beheld. There are no words to describe how intimidating, ferocious, and fearsome he was. Once again I heard in my head, "Get out, or I will kill you! Get out!" I was so terrified that I wet myself. I could feel the moisture trickling down my legs. That was the least of my concerns. I tried with all my might to wrestle my way through the trees, away from this hideous thing. And then, to my horror, my worst fears were confirmed when it gave me chase. I hasten to say that every single second that I was pursued by this mighty, imposing Bigfoot felt like my entire life had been reduced to mere seconds. I now knew, without a shadow of doubt, that I was going to die. The Bigfoot roared as he chased me. He threw a stone after me, and I jumped out of the way. He continued to roar at me and run after me through the trees. I stumbled and fell over a rock. I couldn't believe my bad luck. I'd lost my footing. I went tumbling to the ground. Now I knew I was a goner. The Bigfoot stopped in his tracks, watching me as I awkwardly scrambled to my feet. I threw my camera at him as way of a distraction. It landed at his feet, and I think it was my saving grace, as a curiosity consumed him, and instead of chasing me, he dropped to his knees and was momentarily distracted by the camera, examining it, so that gave me somewhat of a head start. I could hear the Bigfoot making these deep guttural nasal sounds as he ummed and ahed over my camera. With wide, terrified eyes, I quickly glanced over my shoulder. I could see the Bigfoot was trying to make sense of my camera. He was probably wondering what it was. For a moment it appeared to hold his intrigue, but not for very long. He grew bored and threw it to the ground with a thunderous, mighty crash. That was expensive camera equipment that would cost me a fortune to replace. The Bigfoot roared, and his fists pummelled his chest like a silverback gorilla, as if establishing his dominance. Then he continued to give me chase. I continued to run through the trees. I found myself on Flint's grandmother's driveway. I was running with the Bigfoot behind me until I managed to reach the front door. I slammed it with my fists as hard as I could. "Help! Help! Let me in! Let me in! Please, help!" To my relief, an elderly woman came trotting to the door, but she was taking her time about it. "Hurry! Let me in! Hurry! Open up!"
Goodness gracious me, young man! Did I not tell you I was coming? Couldn't you exercise a little patience? I'm not as young as I used to be. Did you have to knock so loudly like that? I'm not hard of hearing, you know. Why is it that everybody automatically assumes that the moment you get old that you're deaf as well? I assure you, my hearing is very acute.
Ma'am, there's a Bigfoot in the woods. It's chasing me. It was going to kill me. I think he's still out there, ma'am. I ran into the old woman's house with a presumptuousness that I adopted only because of my fear. I raced to a window and cried out, "Look, ma'am, he's over there on your driveway, looking in at us. Have you got a rifle, ma'am? That thing needs to be killed. It's highly dangerous. I think you should call Fish and Game at once. You saved my life, ma'am, by letting me into your house, and for that I'm very grateful. I was living on borrowed time, let me tell you, with that thing giving me chase." I spoke to the old lady breathlessly, my heart galloping so fast in my chest, I would have easily put the horses at the Kentucky Derby to shame. The woman took me in, scrutinizing me up and down.
"You're in quite the state, love, aren't you? You look as if you've been dragged through a hedge backwards, if you don't mind my saying so. What did you do to your arm? You're covered in blood. You've got scratches all over your arms."
I ignored the old woman's comments. "It's over there, ma'am. Can you see it? The Bigfoot." I pointed to the window, and sure enough, the formidable Bigfoot stood there on the driveway, looking directly at the window where I was standing. Staring back at us he was. He was shaking his head and giving me a formidable stare.
You're talking about Bosun,"
said the old lady. She chuckled.
"He gave you a scare, did he, love? Don't worry about him. He's harmless."
She went over to the window and waved at the Bigfoot. I could not believe my eyes. To my astonishment, the Bigfoot waved back at her. Then he turned around and glided back into the trees, swinging his arms backwards and forwards. "You know the Bigfoot?" I asked, taken aback. "He waved at you. You're not telling me you're friends with that monster? He tried to kill me, ma'am. He's seriously dangerous. You're acting like it's no big deal. That thing chased me through the woods. I thought he was going to kill me. If you hadn't opened up your door in time, I could be dead right now." The woman chuckled again.
"You're a funny one, young man. You do overreact. I told you Bosun is completely harmless. He'd never have hurt you. Mind you, he does have quite a grumpy temper if you rub him up the wrong way."
You think I'm overreacting, ma'am, do you? I think that thing was going to kill me. You claim to know him. Of course I know Bosun. He's lived on my property for years and years. We happily coexist together. He's very protective of me, you know. And, of course, his tree. He can be quite cantankerously moody, as I was saying. Did you do something to upset him, perhaps? I can see he looked a bit peeved with you. Peeved with me, lady? That Bigfoot was more than just peeved at me. He was going to kill me. I went for a walk through the woods. I wasn't doing anything wrong, and he gave me chase. I've never been so scared in my entire life.
The woman frowned. This is my private property, I hope you realize. Did you not know that you were trespassing on private land? I don't think Bosun would have taken that too kindly. He doesn't like strangers wandering around in the woods. He's very protective of those woods, you know. But that's not the reason he would give you chase. But he'd certainly watch you to make sure you weren't going to harm me in any way. You must have done something to provoke him to anger. I'm just trying to think what that could be. You didn't touch his tree, did you? That would set him off into quite a tangent, let me tell you. Bosun does not like anybody daring to touch his precious tree.
I'm sorry, ma'am. What are you talking about? What tree is this? The woman's face softened.
My name is Laura, young man. You don't have to call me ma'am. You didn't by any chance touch Bosun's tree, did you?
She repeated the question.
It's his pride and joy. He loves that tree. It's covered with all kinds of shoes, hundreds of shoes, boots, sneakers, you name it. He loves that tree. I used to throw out all my shoes, you know, but Bosun collected them all from my dustbin. He started hanging them up on the tree. He has such a fascination for shoes. I give him all my old shoes and pick the odd ones up from thrift stores. I give them to him as gifts. He just loves them, you see.
You mean the tree covered with boots and shoes? Yes, I saw it. It was quite an anomaly to me. I've never seen anything like it before, to tell you the truth.
Well, Bosun loves that tree. You didn't touch any of the shoes on it, did you?
Yes, I did.
The woman chuckled. No wonder he gave you chase. I'm not remotely surprised. He's so territorial and possessive, doesn't want anybody touching those shoes. He wasn't going to kill you. You misunderstood him. He wanted to chase you away from his beloved tree. He might tell you he's going to kill you, but he doesn't mean a word of it. He was probably afraid you were going to pinch one of his shoes.
So you're saying he wouldn't have killed me, ma'am?
No, he wouldn't have killed you. Don't be so ridiculous. Bosun is a teddy bear. He's got a heart of gold. He just gets terribly upset and aggrieved if people touch his things. Just like you would be upset if somebody went through your stuff. More to the point, young man, may I ask you what you're doing here? You didn't just randomly walk in my woods for no reason, did you? And if you were a poacher, you would have a rifle with you, unless you left it behind in the woods. So why are you here? Don't fob me off with any excuses. I may be old, but don't underestimate me. I'm not remotely stupid. There was no point in deceiving this old woman, so I chose to be straight with her. You are Flint's grandmother, are you not? That's right. Oh, you came here to see Flint, did you? Oh, you've missed him. What a pity. But why on earth would you walk through the woods, if that is the case? They're dreadfully overgrown. You could have driven down my driveway. Then Bosun would never have given you chase. She sighed. Some people can be so strange and do the oddest things. I'm so sorry that Flint is not here. He's taken his fiancée out on the town, you see.
Fiancée? I asked. You're talking about Toya Bouquet, are you?
You know Toya, said the woman. Oh, what a delightful girl she is. Well, my grandson got engaged with her last night. He asked her to marry him here at the house.
We had quite the celebration, we did. Flint brought so many delicious things to the house. Caviar, everything you can think of. I'm afraid I knocked back far too much champagne. I'm still feeling a little giddy on my feet. Flint bought Toya the most beautiful diamond ring. You should have seen it. She was thrilled to bits. He proposed to her here, and she said yes. Oh, they make such a charming couple, do they not? I know they're going to be incredibly happy together. And would you believe it, they fell in love over chocolate lava cake. Mind you, chocolate lava cake has got magical qualities, has it not? How long have you known my grandson for, young man? Well, to be fair, ma'am, I do not know your grandson at all, nor do I know Toya. You don't know them? But then why are you here, young man? Well, I'm a private investigator, ma'am, working for a client of mine. Unfortunately, this client of mine is fixated on Toya Bouquet and wants me to find out how serious her relationship with Flint is. She's obviously totally in love with Toya and is looking for any chinks in the armor of the relationship, if you know what I mean, in the hope that she can come crawling back into Toya's life. She wants me to report back to her with photographs. She's paying me well for the job. You're talking about Toya's ex-girlfriend Candace, is that right? That's right, ma'am. You know about her. Oh, yes, I know all about her. I know all the details. That woman is obsessed with Toya. A very intense character, you know. You can tell that she doesn't stand a chance with Toya. Number one, Toya is not gay. And number two, she's totally in love with my grandson. She's getting married to him, so that's that. There's not anything that Candace can do about that. To cut a long story short, and let's not kid, this is a long story, I left Laura's farmhouse with a stomach full of the most delicious food that Laura insisted on filling me up with. I made my way back to my car, if not a little reluctantly. I found it parked on the sequestered country road. I was fearful that Bolson would give me chase again, but thankfully I neither sensed him or saw him again. When I contacted my client Candace, I told her the sad news that Toya was madly in love with Flint and was getting married to him. Tears came into her eyes and she said, "Well, I suppose that's that then. You win some, you lose some. I'll have to find a new love, won't I? But preferably someone who's not in such denial of their sexuality." I hasten to say, losing my camera in the woodgrove, as unfortunate as it was, I understood from Laura, who I'd been visiting from time to time, that the Bigfoot has hung my camera up with all the shoes on his special tree. So I suppose at least that's something. The camera didn't entirely go to waste. So there you are. That's my story. Wow, what an incredible story. I loved every minute of it. And what a scary encounter with that Bigfoot, who had such a passion for a tree full of shoes. What an extraordinary story. Until next time, goodbye and good night.